Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are highly honored to have with us Tunde Kelani, Uncle TK, as we like to call him.
You can drop the uncle, really.
We can drop the uncle, okay. Well, we like to give respect where respect is due. Okay, well, TK is with us this morning, and TK really needs no introduction, but I will still go ahead to establish the framework, so to speak. TK is a Nigerian filmmaker, cinematographer, storyteller, director, and photographer. He's also the managing director of Main Film Productions. He has spent quite a few decades in the Nigerian film and television industry. I think he's been here longer than some of us has been on this earth. He began with the Western Nigerian television and then moved on to the fledgling Nigerian Television Authority. In partnership with others, he subsequently established a production company, Cinecraft, which was involved in some of the top television productions of that time. I think many of us will remember Mirror in the Sun, for instance. As cinematographer, TK has also worked with various filmmakers, well-known filmmakers in the history of Nigerian filmmaking. Among them, Ade Love. He has worked in productions such as Anikura, Ogun Ajayi, Iyaniwura, and Taxi Driver, amongst others. With the establishment of his own production company, Mainframe Films and Television Productions, in 1991, he went into the production of his own films. Some of these films include, or rather are, Tioluwanile, Ayoni Mofe, Kusegbe, and Saworoide, amongst others. You will pardon me if my pronunciation is disastrous. And well, his latest film, Anila, has just hit the cinemas. I haven't seen it yet, but the little I've seen in terms of trailers and pictures, it looks fantastic, really. We will talk about that. Among the various awards and recognition that TK has received for his work are the Nigerian Merit Award, Lifetime Achievement Award. He has been selected as a member of the Emmy Awards International Jury, the African Magic Viewers' Choice Industry Merit Award, the Leopold Sédar Senghor Prize for African Cultural Creativity and Impact. He was also elected to vote in the Directors category of the Board of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in 2019. And since 2019 as well, TK has been based in Abeokuta as a fellow at the Center for Entrepreneurial Studies of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. So that's a very detailed list, really, of so many. TK, thank you so much for being with us. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, this is an activity of the Nollywood Studies Center. It is a center of the School of Media and Communication of the Pan-Atlantic University. It's a resource center. It's also a research center dedicated to, well, doing its own little bit towards the development of the industry. Right. Now, as we go along, please drop your questions in the chat box and we will take them from there. So TK, once again, thank you so much. This is not the first time you have graced our forum with your presence. And of course, it's always a joy to have you. You are one of our big friends. If you will permit me to blow that trumpet a little bit for the center, you have been such a support over the years. Now, you have, like I have read out, you have spent decades in the film and television industry. And I think you have a special perspective, actually, to look at this industry because you were there from the beginning. You were there at the beginning of the television. You were there also at the beginning of the film, the cinemas themselves, okay? So like I said, it gives you a special perspective for assessment. So just to get the ball rolling, what really, how do you see this industry? What are the prospects? What are the things that, yes, you think that we are doing right, or the things that you think, yes, we should begin to do more of, whatever the case may be?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the University, Pan-African University, for the opportunity to share, my experience. It's going to be a forum, so I think it's going to be interactive as well.
Yes.
I'm particularly delighted that this is happening because when the Nollywood Center started at Pan-African, I was there from the beginning, and I've seen it grow. And I want to commend you for the wonderful work you are doing.
Thank you.
And I'm not new to universities or institutions, as you know. I'm resident at the University of Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. But again, I'm at home here, and I know that you yourself, you are an expert, in so people don't know that you've done many years of study, you studied all these films and so on. So I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you.
I think, yes, you are right. I was there almost at the beginning, because I have my uncles, my mentors who are still alive. And those are the people who taught me everything that I know or more today. In the Nigerian industry is very, very interesting because we already know how it started in the various operators, who are using the medium for the Yoruba traveling theater, the trained filmmakers. As a matter of fact, some of my uncles actually brought Hollywood or America right here. Fortunately, some of them have passed on. Uncle Adilaibo just passed on. They did Busy Daughter of the River Goddess and Kanda Akusini, and early films like that. But as you know, my area of interest, I didn't start out by saying I want to be a filmmaker. I didn't even know when they say I'm a cinematographer, I didn't start out like that. I started out, in my interest in photography, and then gradually I wanted to do motion pictures because I'd developed the interest in cinema. I've seen every film that came into Lagos at that time. And I was picked up, or rather, I was trained at the former Western Nigerian television as a film cameraman. And I believe in hindsight now that my kind of storytelling, because going from the community, from oral tradition, and then you see, I'm one of the few people who, have experienced all the media, especially you can't think of, from oral tradition and then into literature, into radio, into television, into film. And it's interesting into social media, And at every turn, they were sort of technological milestone. What was available? I would make a film with people say, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to make a film. But in my own case, it was a need. It was a necessity because I had stories to tell. And I can't just go about telling people by word of mouth or explaining it. So I needed a medium which I can use as the vehicle, for my cultural expression. And that is what film had done. And I was there, when the industry, at that time, I envy young people today. You don't know the power they have, because all around them, they have access to the means of production. In our own case, you have to have a lot of money to import the film stock, which you load into the camera. And after you had shot the film, everything has to be exported back to the laboratories in England or America. And then you wait for some time, almost a month or so, to send all the rushes and the transfer sound to you. And then you start editing. When you have edited all this stuff, then you pack everything back again. But today, you can make a film today. You can make a film right now because the tools are there. And so what I think it has done is giving African filmmakers the platform for which to excel. And we have to start to think about what stories should we be telling? Are we telling the right stories? Are we as Africans, what do we have? Do we remember our heroes? We tapped into the thousands and thousands of our literary resource, which is vast? And then if we look into even Nigeria, you could look into our diversity, 300 tribes, languages, and so are we reflecting that in our cultural product? What should we bring to the table? Are we supposed to just copy, do we become parody of other cultures, or are we going to take example of other cinemas like South Korea, like Oriental and things like that, and bring our own authentic African stories to the world? But the interesting part of it is that, well, the infrastructure is growing gradually, and we have the technology now to achieve anything. And we are beginning to have the expertise because of training, or all these initiatives coming together, and preparing the next generation of filmmakers, which I think we started from the bottom of the ladder, climbing up. And it's just like a soccer. There's no film festival, international film festival, that is now complete without Nollywood. And so all that time, with all the ups and downs, Nigeria has managed to take a foothold in global cinema. First of all, I think we changed the concept of the so-called African cinema, and there was a time when it was essentially Francophone, and Nigeria was not considered a serious filmmaking nation. But today, you can say that again, because Nigeria is here and we're here to stay. There's a lot of catching up to do. And by gradually, I think we have everything. We have the young people, we have the new generation, we have the technology, we have our stories. So now we need to now bring all this together and show the whole world that, hey, what did you think? You think it's a fluke? No, we are here for real. And we are here to, to carve a place for ourselves, and we will stand toe to toe. We're not going to follow you. We're going to stand toe to toe with you, and showcase what we have.
That's a very important point you've made about telling the African story, standing toe to toe and showing what we have. But then you have raised the point about the accessibility of technology. But part of that accessibility is also that, well, we are exposed to so much coming from outside. And I dare say that most of the young people these days know more about what's going on outside than what is going on, or some of their own culture. Now, how can we really deal with that challenge? Because if we want to tap into the deep roots, which you have pointed out, of our culture and so on, but at the same time, it doesn't look like much teaching is done in that regard. How can we deal with this problem?
I think there's a vacuum, absolutely, because it's a bit difficult for young people to start off like that and then get into the mainstream. It's tough. So what I think, there should be some kind of a program, you can say sort of a holding area in the meantime, where young people can thrive, where they can continue to experiment, but I think there has to be sort of, it's got to be a planned strategy to give them, the young people, the opportunity to start practicing their work, their art, and so on. In the sense, they could do TV series or short form in the meantime, while they're waiting for the opportunity to get. And I tell young people that if you take advantage of the available resources you have and you excel at small things, chances are you're going to get the opportunity, to do big things. By and by, you are pulled into the mainstream, not to start at the top, not suddenly after 1 or 2 years, you think, I'm a director, hey, I'm here, And it is interesting because I think the young people are distracted. you know, I don't know, this idea of, you know, they don't bear their names, you know, they give themselves Mr. Wonderful, Director Kid Whiskey, Director Go Below, and Director Climb the Tree, things like that. You know, and I just said, look, listen, when I come to, what is your real name? Who are you? You know, if we compare that with, you know, arts, you know, the great, you know, the great artists, what they do is when they work and then they bring out this masterpiece that is framed and other,
Yeah.
they sign their name on it. So you know, oh, this is a Rembrandt, this is a Van Gogh, this is a Johann Vermeer, this is all these things. But if you are Mr. Wonderful or Mr. Mr. Man or something like that, you don't have assets. You won't have any assets. See, I think that we need that holding area where, you know, and we need to possibly fund it, because suddenly they are not going to have opportunity to get into the mainstream, very competitive, unless we have a national program where about 100 films are funded, and these are, you know, they give young people the opportunity to do that. Something we can call our own national cinema, on which states or governments, you know, Nigerian government can hold, and every year there's a competition or a festival of, you know, such things. And it just, I think it's like sports. When before you go into the under 16, under 17, you know, then before you get a chance to wear the colors of the national team. So I think there's still a lot of work to do. And of course, you too, in the intellectual, you know, academics and so on, you can fashion out how we can move forward, you know. The thing is about consolidation. I think we are gradually getting there, you know, and then just one more, you know, everybody come together and take it up to, you know, another level.
Right. Let me still follow you on that trail, because I know that you pay a lot of attention to the kinds of stories you tell. You are highly focused on promoting this rich culture, like you have said. Now, I think it's something that we can all learn from you, because when I interviewed you a few years back, I know you showed us a story which you had spent 2 to 3 years or more developing. Okay, can you tell us really what is your process for developing your stories before it actually gets to the screen?
Well, that's very interesting, you know, because sometimes, let's take, for example, Anila, that is now started in the cinema yesterday. The idea to make a film on Anila came to me, you know, I think from 2014. Wow. But Gilbelo, my partner and lawyer, said that I actually wrote him an email in 2012 about it.
Wow.
You know, and it's not the only one. My next project, which I've already announced, is Cordelia. And Cordelia, I've been on Cordelia for the last 4 years, you know. So it takes a lot of, in case of Anila, you know, there was very scanty information on Anila, you know, so I started interviewing people and so on. And it dragged on. Anytime that, you know, every music holds the right to Anila's music. So anytime I went back to them and I said, look, I'm here, they say, you were here 2 years ago. You were here 3 years ago, you know. So, but, you know, finally, the idea of a plot, you know, started to take shape in 2020. And what we finally, the film we finally made, I think you have to see the film before we cannot talk about it, because there's quite a lot in the film. And I'm happy that it's coming at this time when I can, you know, share. The idea of me being a filmmaker is, I thought it's a need for me to share my cultural experience. Some of these things are literature. You know, I take a book that I've read and say, wow, I should make a film about this. so that I can share with everybody. So that demands that I make a film or make a series, about, first of all, I've created a need. It's not that I have to make a film. No, I don't have to make a film, but again, it's imperative that I share this experience with the whole world. That's what I'm doing, essentially. So sometimes it takes time. It takes 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, and it's in my head. Anytime you see me, I'm sure there are 4 stories in my head at any particular time. So it's a question of, is it this one or this one? So that's and then during that process, first of all, it starts with just me in my head, and then I begin to add people, a screenwriter, perhaps a partner, and then look for investors, and so on. That's how it starts. And at the end of the process, then it's back to only me. Sometimes it's very lonely. There are times when you're on your own, basically, but that's how it happens. So I have a bank, a collection of works I am going to do, and then I start the process of the research and development and so on, until it becomes practicable.
Now, that also gives the impression that, because even forget the ideas, that you're constantly reading. Because I think to get those ideas, you have to feed your head and so on and so forth. What advice would you give to, well, those who are filmmakers? I wouldn't specify young or old, because I think it's something we can all benefit from. What advice in that regard would you give? Because it's one thing to say, yes, let's come up with good films, but it's quite another thing to come up with stories which are rich, stories which are truly, you could say, deep, as it were. So what advice would you give in that regard, in terms of really getting those ideas, feeding one's head constantly, and really coming out with products that are truly beneficial?
Well, for me, I've always, been fascinated, with my collaboration with creative, the writers, authors, and academics and all that. I've come to seriously, we should look at our intangible heritage and look at our vast diversity, even in Nigeria. We're not looking. That's where I think we are distracted, basically. We are fascinated about other places, other people. We're not looking enough inwards. So I think I think young people should sooner or later begin to turn around occasionally, not maybe all the time, occasionally, look at what we have, within our own, that we haven't told the great stories yet, and they are all abound. So I think we should look more inwards. As for me, I make films that have a bit of myself in it. It has to be part of me. In other words, as I go about, I look at everything that God has given me. And that's what I think we should do. Imagine if we tapped into, look at African cinema, concept of African cinema. About 50 countries, 2,000 cultures and all that. No, we should show the world, what we have. I've discovered that filmmaking or anything in life is education for life. You are going to learn forever. So sometimes, I come across, recently I started to look at South Korean films, and all that, and say, wow, this is a good example of people who have taken advantage of the technology and use it to express themselves, to bring their own, and make it, in the case of Ayinla, and that's just the same. It is made in Abeokuta, a story about Abeokuta, about a fraction of what even Abeokuta, imagine if we apply that to everywhere, every culture in Nigeria, you know what that can, we know what that means. You take something that is local and then you turn it into a global product, a cultural product. Right. You know, I think that's the unique setting. But in other words, in any case, this is Yoruba. We're going to do subtitling in English. We're going to do subtitling in French. We're going to do subtitling in Portuguese. We're going to probably do Spanish. If we think about our brothers and sisters in Cuba and over the world, that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. And I think the signs are already here. Because the international platforms are here. They are searching, for what we have. Netflix is here, Amazon is not too far behind. HBO is around the corner, and then they are looking for the best of what we have. So I think the course is clear. There's no doubt about it that Nigeria is going to play big in global cinema. And if projections suggest that Africa is going to be the next economic power, and Nigeria should be ready because we have everything, our rich cultural heritage, we have everything to be number one.
Those are truly encouraging words. Now, let me not hog all the space here. I have some questions, or I have questions piling up actually. The first one is from Nnamdi. Nnamdi wants to know, what was it like transiting between the various eras of the industry? What lessons are there for the young ones? Are there any regrets, or what would you have done differently?
Look, the lesson, first of all, I consider myself techie, and you don't have to follow me. I mean, this is just in my opinion. When I was starting out, of course, from age 15 or thereabouts, I started to buy cameras. By the time I left secondary school, I must have bought 4 cameras. And finally, from there, I learned other things, learned to type, learned French, those things. And then I got myself apprenticed, as a photographer. But you can say that my development has to do with technology itself. Because I remember in the 80s, I said, look, I need a telephone. And I'm actually going to get a telephone before I get married. Stupid things like that. Finally, I got a telephone. And I said, wow, this is fantastic. Now I have a phone. At that time, there were only 700,000 privileged people who had a telephone.
Right.
So I was lucky to be one of them. I could have thrown a party to say that, listen, I now own a phone. And I was in a boys' quarter. I was living in a boys' quarter back of a house. And then after that, I realized that, wait a minute, I need an answering machine. There's no point, all this call coming in, I don't know who is calling me. So I got an answering machine. Once I got an answering machine, I said, look, actually, I need a fax machine. And I got a fax machine. See, that has been the development because every time something changes, and I followed all the changes, and that's how I went into computing. When personal computers arrived, look, I already knew how to type, and what tripped me about computer is they adopted the same standard typewriter keyboard and added the function keys on top of it. So I was fascinated. What the hell is this? So I got it. So I bought all sorts of, I bought Spectrum, Commodore 64, Atari 500, something Pro Plus before we got into the clone of IBM PC, and then from there it keep going like that. And I knew as soon as they put the graphic cards and the sound cards into the computer, I knew this is real motion pictures going.
Yes.
So today, there's all sort of tools around, production management, the integrated, all the productivity software to back the industry and everything. It's all there. You have to continue to learn.
Yes.
Who would have imagined, even me, that I said, when analog telephone came into Nigeria, of course I got one. I paid 100,000 naira to own one because I was, working part-time contract basis for BBC World Service and Reuters and so on. So I needed to be contacted, I needed to be reached, and even then, I could not, in my widest imagination, that a mobile phone, a smartphone today will carry a camera, it will carry a video camera, and you could make a film completely on your smartphone. And so, young people don't have excuses these days. I think you should just go out and make film every day. You just keep practicing. Even now, I edit my own stuff, some of small things that I'm doing, making film. There are a lot of other things that you could be doing, because the tools are there, and they're just a modest investment, and you are up and running, creating on a daily basis. The thing is, you have to keep practicing, practice every time, so, well, I think I'm privileged in the sense that I have gone through all the known media or all the known technologies of making motion pictures, including the smartphone. Could you believe that? So I think it's, imagine what's going to come next, because, the Yorubas have a saying, "Ogbon odun ni were emi." Look, if you think you are smart today, you are the best. Next year, you'll be stupid. If you don't do anything about it, you'll be obsolete next year. That's the point. Sure. So we all have to keep on our toes and look at these wonderful opportunities, wonderful things God has given us to continue to create and tell our stories. As long as there are storytellers, there will be audiences. The audience are waiting. We have to get on with it, and give them, the best experience to share what they didn't know. What do we know? We don't know our history. We haven't interrogated anything. Our literature is lying fallow there. So we are getting started. And at this turn of all these wonderful kids to come together and, make us proud.
Right. Well, talking about the young kids, Kike says, I would like to work with new filmmakers. Where can I find them? And can you recommend any?
What can I recommend?
To find young filmmakers. You encourage the young filmmakers to come out and do their thing. And Kike would like to know, can you recommend where to find these young filmmakers?
Where to find the young filmmakers?
Yes, that's what Kike is asking.
Well, there are a lot of platforms, there are industry associations and guilds, and we used to hang out, or we hang out at everywhere. Understand? We have and you have to just keep looking. There's information about the industry everywhere. And if you are truly interested, you will find I can't tell you what I've done, with myself. If you are really passionate about this art of filmmaking, you would find anybody anytime. That I think they just like by now, young people should be. I'm sure some of them don't know the importance of mentorship. They have to find their own mentors. I have my mentors, even to today. They still talk to, my mentors. Sometimes they call me or I call them, and that's what I think will happen in the industry. It's look for mentors, and even the established filmmakers should find mentees.
Good point, yes. Okay, then Gaffa says, first, I must commend your initiative and effort on the new film, Anyinla. I look forward to watching it. May I request that you do more of the docu-movies in a way to preserve our almost forgotten history? We need to create more docu-films about our national heroes like Fela, Abiola, MKO, Gani Fawemi, to mention a few.
Well, basically, in my own way, my work is clear about that because most of my work have been about the conservation and the preservation of cultural heritage. You know, so I'm not, that's my area, but I think take Ayinla, for instance. The story we told about Ayinla, I think more should follow.
Yes.
You know, so people are going to look at it and say, no, 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 I know my angle, how to tell this story. And young people should do that. Sometimes I'm disappointed, really, because I think by now young people should come to me and say, look, we're taking your shower there, and we have taken it further than that because this is what we have done, or this is what we will do. You know, any of those things. So that's the kind of thing I'm and don't leave it to me. Everybody should, they're free. It's a challenge to all of us. That's throwing a challenge at everybody. So I think, yeah, it's taking, and I've never left. I'm there in the center of everything. So I expect others, you know, to do their own, to come into it.
Fantastic. Well, Niyi is expressing a desire to work with you. So what I will suggest that maybe, well, Niyi, you can send a private message to TK on that one. And Eze is expressing his gratitude for being a positive influence for his coming into the industry. So I think we will find that there are many people like that who have been motivated by you. But now let me take the question of Tony. Tony says, stories, written, adaptations. You are probably the one Nigerian filmmaker who is dedicated the most attention to adapting Nigerian texts, about 3 or 4, if I am correct. Could you speak to us about your adaptation process? What do you look out for in the text? How beholden to the text are you in the film?
Well, I think I started by reading for pleasure, you know, and that's the point I'm making, that I don't think anybody could become a filmmaker without reading. Yes. You know, you need to read, you know, you need to go around, you need to travel, you have to visit these places, historical places and all that. You know, so I'm primarily fascinated about, I started reading early and I've read almost anything I came in contact with, and these are marvelous, fantastic stories. When I was young, you know, I was reading Arabian stories, and you know, so it starts from reading. And once you start the habit of reading, I could almost imagine the author without seeing the author, you know. And for me, I think writers are a special breed. You know, I think it's superior than filmmaking itself. I'm talking about literature because these people have done, you know, I just follow them. I worship authors. I worship writers. You understand? And sometimes I just say, oh my God, people don't know that such a story is. You know, I've taken a stack of literary materials to young people, and I say, well, let's do it like they do it in they do in the houses of assembly and all that. If you have ever read this book, say I, and if you never read this book, say nay. And anytime I hold all these young people are nay. And I say, nay. Then what the hell? You have not read anything. You understand? So I think I started by reading, and I love the stories are original. If you, like my daughter once put it, when you read a book and you watch an adaptation of it, then you have to go back and read the book again. And occasionally find out there's a lot missing in the adapted form than the original material.
Yes, true.
So, and sometimes it leaves room, you know. So far, I've done maybe about 8 adaptations. And the interesting part of it is today, I'm still on speaking terms with those authors. That means I have added value to what.
That's important.
It's a risk. 2 things could have happened. If you made a film from a source material, from a writer, and the writer sees what we've done and says, you know what, you must never put my name in that work. And as a matter of fact, I don't want you to speak to me. I'm not going to speak to you again in my life and all that. But so far, I'm still on speaking terms with those people. And it's very interesting because if you take Mami, for instance, on its own, the way Femi Osofison wrote it, it's a fantastic story. And it's just about me. And I told you, I make films that have a bit of myself in it. I'm concerned, all around me, my environment. And it was going to be the year, the 2008, when the World Cup came to Africa. The World Cup came to African soil. And I thought, wow, this is an opportunity, to document it, although I knew that Nigeria will not win the World Cup. Usually, you know how we do it. We start very late, and then 2 months, we throw all these players together, and then we start praying. And then we start the permutations. If Zambia loses, then we draw, then we may go to the second, that kind of thing. It doesn't matter. But the important thing is Nigeria was one of the 36 nations that filed out in South Africa for the World Cup. And so we wrote the adult Kashi into the story, and then it was interesting because it's parallel, the character will never meet anyway and all that. And we put that in the film. Complete transformation from what Femi Osofison had in mind. So that's the kind of thing, that excites me. When you surprise the writer or the author, the original owner of the work, and say, wow, I never thought about that, and things like that. So that for me, I'm really always, the next, of course, Ayinla is an original concept, but my next film, Cordelia, is adaptation again from Femi Osofison, and we have plans, for that as well.
Okay. Although you have said quite a bit already that gives the response to this question, I will still take Ken Olaleye's question. He says, how do you stay relevant over the years, considering the fact that film has changed over the years?
Film has changed. I think the theory of is the same. The technology may have changed, things change, of course, but the basic, theories are still intact. So of course, it's with the technology, we have more access to the tools, to tell the story efficiently, and with all the creativity that we already have. So that's the kind of changes. The changes that I see, is that we have evolved. Now, with the technology also, we have to start thinking of how, after making the film, how is it disseminated? How is it worked?
Yes.
You no longer have to, at an appointed time and place, sit with strangers in the dark, to watch this film. No, it's consumed right on the spot, depending on where it is. So we begin, and then we have to start thinking about define the means of ownership. Somewhere within this space, we're confused about the owner of a right, because some people take a piece of work and share it. They don't even get money, So those are the challenges. Those are what are changing, and we have to continue, to engage it. So the changes in that sense, we forever continue. That if you truly want to learn filmmaking, we still go back to the paintings of 1605 or things like that to continue to learn. It's all there, those are hidden. These are, like when I was in film school, they told me, look, if you really truly want to express yourself, you have to go to the National Arts Gallery, and watch the paintings, see what the masters have done before the technology, to the day with all the technology, we are still struggling to match or to come closer to what have been done, in the 18th century and things like that.
Yes. Actually, there are two questions here, which I think link up very well to this last point you've just made. And this is the question from Hanifa, who asks, how important are visuals from camera work to set design for you when making a film? Fadekemi also asks, in what ways can you tell authentic stories through costumes? This point you made about the linking to the paintings, I think speaks very much to these two questions.
Well, I think in the first instance, the story demands everything you see in the film in terms of period and characters and settings and production design and things like that. The story demands all those things. So, and that's part of, first of all, started from the literary, of course. There are people who are gifted, who can write the story, you know, and come up with the blueprint, which is the screenplay that you need, which is now broken down. And then the division, that's where the division of labor comes in. You now find experts who come together and share this vision. And each one, they have the room to create. Sometimes, you know, they ask, what is the work of a director? The director is, you know, formulate a vision, but provide the channel of communication for others, you know, to tap into their expertise, you know, to achieve, you know, this goal. So take, for instance, Ayinla Omowura died 40 years ago, and that takes us back to the 80s. And we have to look within historical context what has happened. And Abeokuta, well, okay, there's been a lot of development in Abeokuta. We have bridges, we have wide bridges, you know, and things like that. But luckily for us, some of the old city is still intact, at least for now. So the idea is to make Abeokuta itself a character in the story and quickly, you know, record or preserve whatever that is there now, you know, because they may not be there forever. Right. So you can say, for instance, you say, Ayinla Omowura, where's the house he lived in? Then you have to go back and see the film. Although we gave him a new home in the film, but his original house, somehow you get a glimpse of it. You know, so any opportunity to tell a story, I think you should exploit every advantage, you know, that you can get from it, from the points of entertainment, and then from the point of imagery. You know, you have to design all these things. You know, you have to. So it's just not your work is just not just ordinary work like that. There are hidden treasures in everything that you are going to do, you know, within that opportunity, you know, to share that experience. So it's a huge responsibility, you know, and I think it's as you can see, it's collaborative. When you see the credits of even some of the Hollywood films, 10 minutes, you are still sitting down. Yes. And you say, where the hell were they? And so it's possible that you start a movie and at the end of it, a lot of people buying and say it's a movie and you never met throughout the whole process. You know, so I think it's an amazing medium, you know.
It is. Thank you. Well, Eze says, I am a cinema manager and currently a student of creative film production with Ebony Life Creative Academy. I stumbled into a theory called production triangle, which has 3 components: quality, cheap, fast, and states that if you want it good and fast, it won't be cheap. And if you want it fast and cheap, it won't be any good. My question, do you think this has been the theory guarding your output or results if you have to advise young filmmakers like me?
Well, it is when you've been an independent producer, then suddenly you have used those triangles, you know, and when you set out as first of all, there's no money, you know, usually in productions like that, it's not like Hollywood where they give you $50 million, $200 million to make a movie. You are struggling, you know, with 25,000 naira or 35,000 naira. 30, no, sorry, 30, anything from 3 million naira to 40 million naira. What is that? In normal Hollywood production, that's just the budget for tea and coffee. You know, so once you do that, you are almost going to kill yourself. So you can take any of those things, cheap and good, or fast and good, whatever. You know, they won't tell you before you, you select those things. You know, even if you have never come across them. This is what we all practice in independent filmmaking. Sometimes it's a passion and the desire that I'm going to tell this story and I'm going to tell it now. You know, so what do you have? You know, look around you. Whatever you have, a lorry, anything outside in your area, you have to write it into the story. You know, so just practice. Don't just read about it. By the way, the opportunity you get, you are lucky to have gone into a program at Ebony Life. Yes, that's part of your journey. You know, whatever you get into, don't forget, some people save thousands of dollars to get into a film school and they spend 3 to 4 years just doing it. And then you could, if you get a 3-month course, then yes, that's part of your startup in life. So make the best of it. There's no knowledge, there's no opportunity to learn that is waste. It's not never going to be a waste. But the most important thing is, okay, so what are you going to do now? Just get out and practice it and do it. That's the best teacher that you can have.
On this thing you said about the funding, for instance, let me throw in a question here. How have you dealt with funding of your films? Because this remains a key challenge for filmmakers in Nigeria, given that the financial institutions are not always, well, I would say perhaps don't fully understand the business. So many times they are very wary about committing. How have you dealt with this challenge?
Well, it's, I'm still dealing with it, you know, because when you have a project, you have a dream, it's very hard to convince people because they may not see it, you know, right away, yes. You know, but I just somehow, in my own case, you know, I've really fallen down many times, believe me sincerely. But if I look around, somehow there are some people that will they lift me up again. They all put me and say, look, you know, I hope you're not going to let this make you throw in the towel and things like that, you know. So you have to do it. You have to convince people and you have to sacrifice everything you got, you know, and then people will start to live. You see, over time, if you are consistent over a period of time, you know, you begin to, you know, have some goodwill assets, some assets in goodwill. So if you say, this sort of person did, oh, we know him, oh, we heard about him, oh, he will do that, you know, and so on. So basically, it's unlikely that you just walk into a bank or something and say, hey, you know what, I have this billion, give me 50 million and I'm going to do what? I'm going to make it, get out, my friend. What do you think? What do you think we do here? You know, you think, you know, so, you know, you have to continue to work at it. There are, hopefully, you know, government and corporate organizations are beginning to work with the industry. And chances are that as we go along, there's going to be investment in our creative industries because it's going to be big. It's going to be the demand for good films. Demand for good content is on the increase. You know, and, you know, very recently, even the federal government, you know, we did digital crossover. And the day it was launched in Lagos State, 30 stations on that platform, free. More community has the capacity for 60. So where are they going to get the content from?
Content, right.
Of course, that means it's a good signal to you that no, we can only, from now on, the industry is going to be sustainable and you should be part of that.
Fantastic. Well, Gafar is asking, well, he's sending you a reminder. He says he'd like to remind you that one of your dreams is to make a docufilm on Hubert Okunde. Remember, we went to Ogunde's home, Osasa, together during location Reche of T. Oluwanile Part 2. Are you still working on the Ogunde project?
It's desirable. You know, I think if I don't make it, others should make it. If you know Ogunde, that's the problem. I knew him. You know, I sat by his feet and learned about his extraordinary talent, his sacrifices, his devotion and commitment to his art till the last when he died. You know, before he died, we were working, I was privileged to be with him on the set of Mr. Johnson, which was based in Jos at that time. Although our main location was in Toro local government area, you know, Bauchi State. And he was ill and they took him away. But he was in the film too, but he had once left, which he hadn't done. So they flew him back in an air ambulance just for him to complete, you know, to complete the film, that last scene. So I got a camera from NTA school in Jos, you know, and filmed all of that. You know, so I'd never seen someone so completely devoted, you know, and passionate about his work than Ogunde. So he came and completed that one scene, and then they flew him back to England, and he passed on. You know, I gave this piece to NTA, it was shown, and I remember that all the time. I remember Ogunde every day. There are so many other sides to Ogunde, so well, yeah, why not? And Ogunde made 4 films, and so far, collectively, with all we have done since almost 30 years that it's gone, we have none of us are doing anything close to Ogunde's work. You know, so it's a lot of challenge. The shoes that Ogunde left, none of us can, now we can't feel it. You know, so yes, it's possible.
Okay. Well, Jimmy is agreeing with you that more people should also follow your footsteps so that it's not you alone trying to do all of this great work. Well, Dele asks a question here. He says, when you talk about telling our story, exploring our cultures, considering the dynamic nature of culture, are you not bothered that this can lead to rehashing or bringing back some unwholesome parts of our history?
Sorry, I don't understand. Can you just give it to me again?
Dele is asking that in talking about bringing in culture, our cultures into the stories we tell in our films, that is the concern. Should we not also be concerned about the unwholesome aspects of that culture, of bringing back some of the unwholesome parts of our history?
That's very interesting. I don't believe some of we don't even understand our culture at all. You know, we don't even know our history. Because apparently you are not, what do you think the whole world is doing? They are going back into their own culture. And look, there's a lot of learning we have to do here. The problem that we've had is that I think we have been confused so much that we cannot even recognize there's no culture that is totally positive, and there's no culture that is totally negative. True. At least we have what it takes to be able to take the good aspect, the positive aspects of our culture. See, if you see nothing wrong in what you are getting from outside, well, I think you have to think again, because, you know, if you are well-read, you know about all those cultures too. You know, it was a culture for people to come all those that time and raid us here and took the best of what we got, you know, and then they took us away, changed, you know, and all that. So what about that kind of culture? You know, so no, you have to look at your culture, and you have the tools in your hand to retell your stories. You have the power, you know, to, if you don't do it, They will do it for
it.
you. And that's the problem. You have been listening to people who are telling your stories for you. You have not gone back to be educated about your own culture and see that 3,000 years ago, you were there, you know, and for the fact that we didn't write down doesn't mean that we did not contribute to humanity or development. So, listen, your education is not complete. You have to go back and rediscover yourself, and then perhaps your eyes will be opened, and then you can take advantage of the tool, this power, and tell your stories yourself.
Right, thank you. Lovely response, TK. Well, Nii and Dennis would like to be able to contact you and are asking how to do it after this. I think there are probably other persons who will have that interest of being able to reach out to you afterwards, following this conversation.
Well, I think let's take advantage of this forum. If you really want to contact me, I think you contact Chioma or the organizers of this forum, and they pass your message to me, and you can be sure that I will reply.
That's a good response. We will do that. Well, AJ Fashina is asking, when making a first film, is it okay to use actors that are not very popular above those that are charging over my budget?
I think your story, like I told you, we are back to basics. Your story will demand who you put in the film. In my own case, in my own opinion, I will follow my instinct. Sometimes I don't use the popular artists. I just go for people who can tell that story effectively. And from that process, stars have emerged. But again, it depends on demand of the particular project I'm doing. I might maybe one or two faces. Sometimes I even use people who are not actors at all. I just see them in the community and say, hey, come and do this, because I've watched you over some time. The idea is, as you go along, you must open your eyes, your resources, because as you go about in life, you are developing a bank of imagery in your head. So when the time comes, you just recall it. So if you are starting out, I don't think, if you can afford it, stars cost money, and you know that, and their time is very valuable. So you should think about it. Go back to the triangle of production. Good, cheap, fast.
Exactly. Okay. Well, Yinka says, we that run film schools in Nigeria have found it so difficult getting young people interested in learning skills. Young people want university certificates without skills. What can be done, sir?
Well, I think it depends on the syllabus or whatever they teach in the universities. It's good. Whatever, I encourage young people to, no, you must go to school first. It's very important to be tutored in a disciplined environment. Well, later you will discover yourself, but you need to experience the academic. You need to be really educated, because we are in a knowledgeable era. This is an era of technology and knowledge, and you cannot just be half-baked. So like here I am, and later you may find yourself in the midst of academics and professors, like now. So what are you going to do? So I think that's a good advice. You can combine that with industry experience, but it's important that you lay a foundation on which you can, broaden your life and your experience.
Okay, Blessing is asking if you can share your thoughts on what should be the preferred corporate structure for filmmakers in Nigeria. If we're looking to the business aspect of filmmaking in terms of funding, distribution, and even collaborating on productions, what corporate structure do you think is best to carry out our projects?
Well, that is a tough question, because I don't think I'm the best person to answer that question, because I said don't follow my footsteps and don't do what I was a bit reckless. Not only that, at the time I was like a machine, and then trying to be corporate later. I think you can manage the two, and it's important to set up properly, whatever you do, no matter how small it is, if in doubt, I think you can consult the experts, who can help, to put your business in a corporate, whatever you do. I think it's important. So now there's emphasis on entrepreneurship and things like that. I think the filmmaker has to be an entrepreneur sooner or later,
Right.
because, well, I'm quoting something I read that said something like, to make a film, you have to be, you cannot make money by making films. We can make money by selling the film yourself. In other words, what they're saying is that it's important that as a filmmaker, sooner or later, money is going to be important to you so that you can purchase your freedom. If you don't have money, you cannot be free. So the filmmaker of today has to be an entrepreneur in a way. And I think you should look at it, you should consider that.
Okay. Tess is asking, what's the future of storytellers who wish to tell their stories in their minority dialect?
Sorry, come again.
What's the future of storytellers? Tess wants to know, who wish to tell their stories in their minority dialect?
Well, minority, let me just give the example of, I benefited from global cinema, and always remember Satyajit Ray, the celebrated Indian filmmaker who made film in his own Bengali, his own language. It's 15% of India, speak that language, but he didn't adopt Hindi, which was widely by the majority. So it's a consideration, and there's no reason why I think that should show the diversity of Nigerian culture, because whatever you do will be subtitled.
Right.
Will be subtitled in the European languages or what you have. And you see, if, like some people, you desire to win the Oscar in the foreign language category, for the international category, that's exactly what they expect you to do, not to use the foreign language, but to make the film in the language of the story. Right. So I think follow your heart. If that's what you want to do, there's no reason why you should not do it. I do it most of the time, so, and I've not regretted it. And as a matter of fact, I do think that that's the best way I could express myself. Primarily, those films are made for those people, but if others are interested, that's where the issue of identity comes in. If the Korean makes film in their language, the Japanese make their film in their own language, and Russia make film in the Russian language and all that, they're making their film in their language, then how about me? So I have to make a film, I have to express myself in my own culture. And that's what I think the whole world is. I don't think, why not?
Yes. Let me follow up a question that comes to my head now. How do you deal with the challenge? Because clearly, these days when so many of us are losing the ability to speak our indigenous languages, have you faced a situation whereby an actor you want to work with perhaps is not so fluid in the language or has challenges with it? Do you face that challenge sometimes?
Okay, so Muni.
Hello? Okay, we lost you a moment there. Did you get my question, TK?
Oh, hello.
Yes, I can hear you. I was asking, do you face the challenge sometimes of actors who perhaps do not have a very good grasp of the language? Given that these days, many of
Oh,
us
well,
are
people who
losing.
don't have a good grasp of their language.
Yes, so that if you're working with an actor, but he's not so, well, fluid in the language, and that's the language of the film.
Well, I don't know. Well, perhaps such a person. How about pidgin? Suddenly, pidgin now is accepted. It's
Yes.
international. So at least that's, if you like, that's our language. It's become our language now. So in that case, you can use pidgin. Why not?
Okay. Well, I have a question here from Godwin. Godwin would like to know, well, Godwin says, I am in Sokoto State, where I see a lot of material that will become a great transformational material if turned into a film or if films are produced around them, especially considering the geographical and historical relevance of Sokoto as a core north and the seat of the caliphate. So how can I get my dream into reality, being a private filmmaker? I am leading Nantap in Sokoto, but not much of film activities taking place here. I run a film school, but with little resources and feline minds.
First of all, you need a story. Just read. Go and do. There's so to explore, but you have to read first. Even now, since the 80s, I've dreamt in Passport of Malawency. You know, essentially it's about the North. So I think you just go on, for God's sake. You read and start. If you don't practice, if you don't start now, you'll be talking about it 10 years from now.
Yeah.
You can find people like yourself, come together, network, you know, and so on. But it's not an excuse not to do anything.
Okay. Then Tony follows up on his previous question on adaptation. He says, you have adapted Nigerian texts. As you know, one of your go-to authors, Oshofison, loves adapting the classics. Would you consider adapting an ancient classic, Greek or Roman, yourself?
Of course. Let me see that even now, since maybe 10 years ago, I've had a script, you know, of the gods are not to blame. You know where
Yes.
from. Yes, I would. Why not? For instance, look at Femi Oshofi's who is afraid of Tashulani Yepa. And you know, the source material, you know, is international. You know, so, you know, so of course, Oedipus Rex and things like that, yes, I had something like that in mind. It's only a matter of time. See, so yes, I would.
Okay. Then Samuel is expressing an interest in the sci-fi genre. He says, how do you think in the nearest future we can start telling Nigerian stories via sci-fi genre, looking at the backdrop of movie-making technology in Africa?
We can make any story. It doesn't matter as long as, let me tell you, it works this way. You can tell your story, sci-fi or anything, but it will take time and money. Do you have the money? Because visual effects and things and sound cost money, and it may take time, because most of those things take time to put together, maybe 2 years to 3 years. So yes, you can, if you have the time, you have the money.
Tunde would like to know, with reference to your forthcoming project, Cordelia, I want to ask, he says, how do you intend to approach this story, the adaptation? And what are we to expect that will be quite different from your usual stylized adaptations, which you have done in the past?
I think it's just about the story. I just want you to enjoy the story when you see the film, and maybe after the film is done and you have watched it, you have to do what my daughter suggested, that first of all, you find the original story, Cordelia, written by Femi Oshofisan or Okimba Lanko, and then you go out and watch the film and you go back and read the text. That will answer your question.
Okay. Well, our time is running out and we have so many more questions. I'll just read out what Gbemishola says. I'm quite fascinated by the trans-border experiment that brought together the Yoruba people of Nigeria with their brothers and sisters in Benin Republic in your films Abeni and Narrow Path. I'm looking forward to another film that will extend this further to embrace other Yoruba cultural spaces in the Caribbean and American world. And Usman says, I have the same idea as yours on Ayinla to tell the story of late Dr. Sikuru Ayinde Barrister, Fuji. But I wake up every day and I nurse the fear, if to even start it at all. And the reasons are budgetary. What can you advise?
You have to start the research now. And while you are doing that, you have already started, and as you go along, doors will open for you. So don't think about it. I think you should just make an effort. Maybe start writing it, maybe collecting the music, all of it. In the case of Ayinla Omowura, look, this is a man. What fascinates me about Ayinla is this is a man who could not read, he could not write at all. Even this drummer, Adewale Onilola, also, like all the big people will say, he's an illiterate. They are illiterate. But they gave us 22 volumes of this music. And it's not ordinary music. It contains everything. Poetry, literature, history, philosophy, and everything in it. 22 albums from someone or some people considered illiterate in that sense. And 40 years later, here we are, extending their work, bringing, I love me, but suddenly it's alive through the work that they have done. So if you are thinking of those things, to start the work today, start researching about those people. First of all, start with their work, and then people who know them, what you can read about them, and so on. It's a lot of work. So I wish you luck.
Okay, then we'll take one last question. One last question from Femi, who asks, I want to thank TK for his irrepressible willingness to teach and mentor the generation next in our industry through these many years. What is the importance of building entrepreneurship skills and management understanding beyond creative skills?
Like I told you, there's in my own case, I have a team, of people, and I'm able to delegate those responsibilities, things that have to do with corporate, legal, things like that. People handling all those, free me, to concentrate on the creative aspect of the work itself. So I lean on people a lot, that is the way I work. There are some people who have the ability to combine together. We have to find out what works for you, But in my own case, I leave the aspect to people who are experts at it, and we work together as a team.
Okay. Thank you so very much, TK. That was our last question. Thank you so much. I think we have all learned a lot, and we have enjoyed this time tremendously. Well, thanks to all our participants for being here. Thank you for your questions. I think your questions contributed a lot to also drawing TK out on this one. Well, the video will be processed and put up eventually on our YouTube channel for those who would like to watch it again and keep tapping into all the so many wise words TK has given us. So once again, TK, thank you so much. And those who want to get in touch with TK, remember he has offered, if you send your messages through the Nollywood Studies Centers, we will forward them to him. So thank you so very much once again. Thank you, TK. And I wish you all
Pleasure.
Thank you. I wish you all a very nice day indeed. All the best.
Bye-bye. Go and watch La and we'll talk more.
Yes, we will. We will probably will ask you back for that.
Reminding everyone that Ainla is in the cinemas. Please go out and watch it, and then let's talk again.
Yes, that'll be a very nice conversation indeed. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot again, TK. Have a good day.